because I was scared of losing that momentum. I was afraid if I went 4 months without being a headline in powerlifting, then.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the M42 Adventures podcast. I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and today I've got one that I've been excited about for, probably since I started thinking about doing podcasts, but for sure for the last couple months. But his name is Brandon Lilly. He's just I want to say beautiful, but he's a wonderful man. He's just a good person, good soul. I met him a few years ago on a hunt in Hawaii, and then we hunted that year in Minnesota, and we stay in contact with each other. He's just a good person, and that's, again, the guests that I want on here are the people that are deep and good and giving more than they take. And so this is going to be a good conversation. I'm excited about it. We're going to dive into a lot of different things here, and I hope you enjoy this episode. So stay tuned. So what's up, man? How have you been?
Man, I've been good and been busy. A lot of stuff going on this time of year, getting ready for hunting season, which anymore it doesn't seem like the hunting season ever stops, which I know you understand because you're somewhat into the international scope of things and learning about that world and hunting in different places around the world. So, I've hunted in Mexico this year. I've hunted in Australia this year. I'm getting ready to hunt in Africa in a few weeks. Yeah. And man, I really, not to get too far away from the point of the question, but I just really enjoy new places, new faces, learning new things, learning new skills. Like in Australia, their hunting model is so much different than ours. One, they don't have seasons like we have. They don't have tags or restrictions like we have. So it's kind of a self-imposed respect for the animals and the land, and shoot what you need, don't kill too much kind of thing. But their setups are so different. Like here in America, we've kind of glorified the distance shooting, shooting an arrow 100 yards or 120 yards and building arrows sub 500 grains for that measure and things like that. In Australia, they tend to be a little bit heavier arrow. They don't like to shoot super far distances. They like to get in close. And, a few years ago when we met, I was shooting a compound, but since then I've been using the Recurve. So going to Australia and learning from Nick, the guy that I hunted with, was just awesome. I hunted with him in Australia in Argentina a couple years ago and learned a lot from him there, but having a week with him in Australia to kind of delve into how he thinks about things, his process, and that's what really excites me. A guy says, I use this arrow, this bow, that doesn't tell me anything. But like when I hear the process of how he built to that arrow and decided on which bow and that kind of stuff, just influenced me in a very positive way when we met in Argentina. And then to go there in Australia and even double down on that knowledge, like it's been awesome. So I'm getting ready to go to Africa in a couple weeks. Got a hunt there and then rolling into fall. So it seems like I'm hunting more than ever in a long form answer.
Yeah. Well, and that's, rough life, right? That's, you're living the dream, So where are you going in Africa? I actually fly to Turkey today, in about 6 hours with my wife and 3 kids. And we're there for a few days. And then we head to Africa for our experience, right? Our M42 experience for 2 weeks there. So Ryan is the first week. He's the headliner the first week. And then on the second, where are you going in Africa?
I want to say, so I went to Limpopo a couple years ago.
That's where we're going.
You're going to love it. I mean, it's so great. It's so great, man. Like,
good. That's good to hear.
The people are beautiful. The food was incredible. I'll tell you this, South Africa, in the context of what I got to experience, was cleaner, friendlier, and safer than I feel in America in some instances. But one of the guys told me, he was like, without tourism, without people coming here, we have nothing. So it's our duty to be kind and keep things clean and welcoming and stuff. So I think you guys are going to have a blast. I've been dreaming about going back since I got back. So
that's a good point. Like we actually are going to go, kind of my background. We've spent some time together and my travel history. And so, M42 is not just hunting, it's not, it's experiences, right? And so when we go to Africa, this experience that I set up, we're doing a helicopter ride. We're going to go to a photo safari. And then the one that I'm probably more excited for than any other aspect of what we're doing, including my hunt. I'm taking me and my boys hunting. They're 10. His birthday's today, turned 10. So he gets to hunt. and then my older one's 12, is we're going to a orphanage,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we've raised thousands of dollars from different sponsors and different people. Uh, Also had a lot of product donated. I'm actually taking 18 soccer balls. I saw this
Oh,
back in the day where a guy that traveled, it was like 10 years ago, and he would just take a duffel bag of soccer balls, just deflated because they can travel, easier.
yeah.
And he just, wherever he goes, man, he sees some kids out there, kicking a can or whatever, and he pumps up a ball and throws it to them. And so we're taking 18 soccer balls, M42, soccer balls. But I, like you just said, I think that's what I love about you, Brandon, is, spending time with you is your heart. And I'm sure you hear this all the time, but, it's not about going to Africa and killing some animals. It's about going to Africa and experiencing their culture, their
Hmm.
way of life, and hopefully leaving it better than when we got there.
Yeah. Well, to that point, I would credit probably because I haven't always been that way. I think
Mm,
like for people that wouldn't know who I am or don't know my story, I was a power lifter at a world level champion, and kind of went through a little bit of that narcissistic, like, this life is mine. I have to shape it. I have to do that kind of stuff, but only from the context of for me. Like,
mm,
it wasn't about how I made you feel. It was
mm,
about how you made me feel, and I was very much a taker, like, just get what I can get and move on, get what I can get and move on. And I got hurt at the top of my career. I was one of the best in the world at the time, or was having those streak of performances, and I blew my knees out, and it subsequently led me to 19 surgeries. And I was the guy that I wasn't Brandon. I was Brandon the power lifter.
mm,
So, like, everything in my context of how I would talk to you would always relate back to some way of kind of like showcasing that about myself, and like, I am this ultimate man kind of thing. And when I was laying there on my back after my surgeries, it's like, well, who are you without those things? And
mm,
I realized that I'm just a collection of the people that have supported me and believed in me and encouraged me and things like that. So it gave me a sense of humility that I think, had I never gotten injured, I could have never felt. Like, I
mm,
was not that man. I was incapable of those things. So what was all that worth if I could never go back to that? So for a few years I did try to spin back to that and try to keep lifting and stuff, but it just wasn't the same. But I started traveling more to the meets, and I was doing some commentating. I was announcing online when we were doing live streams, and I got to know the lifters as people instead of my competition. So I
mm,
started to view these human beings totally differently, and they got to see me totally differently. And of course, like so many guys our age, I was a huge Bourdain fan. I love cooking food. I love all this stuff, and I love to travel. So it was like I was watching a guy that was doing all the things that I wanted to do, and not like I said, "Hey, try to be like Bourdain," but it was like, this guy just he doesn't go to Vietnam to, make some amazing trip at the beaches, or Thailand for the beaches, or wherever for himself. He showcases the world what's there, but it's always and it's not at the nicest restaurants all the time. It's always sometimes it's like the street vendor or some person's home that he's visiting. And that's when I started to realize, when I would go into a gym, I was going in there to train. I didn't know the owner, I didn't know the equipment. I just got my session in and moved on. And when I started going to the gyms and being like, well, who owns this place? Well, this guy. Well, tell me the story. And then,
mm,
hey, let's go to lunch. Let's go have a drink. Let's go do whatever. And when I started reciprocating with people, like, it started to be an even exchange, man, the world just opened up to me in a different way. And not from a selfish sense, just like, man, it's just a lot better when you're kind to people for that purpose, for nothing else. And you just see what happens. And yeah, I love learning about things. Like I said, in Australia, I love learning how people's wheels turn and how they create things and what they think about when they're creating things. So yeah, I think I am definitely more curious about the places I go for where I'm going, rather than the things I'm going to necessarily be doing. Because most of the time I have one or two things on my itinerary, and then it's like, just immerse yourself the rest of the time. Figure out what this
mm.
life is about. So it's been exciting. That's why I'm envious of you, man. You get to do a lot more of it than I do, but I get to do quite a bit, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's it. There's always more, somebody further ahead, but the fact of what you're doing and the life you're living is, I mean, I see it on your Instagram and whatnot. We don't talk a lot the last couple of years, but it's obviously something. You know, I what transition? What made you get into that to where you started? Was it your job? Is that what kind of got you into that, or was it what
So,
kind of clicked?
so I work for Sornex Exercise Equipment. We build exercise equipment for every facet of professional sport you can imagine. Like we have
How, how long have you been there?
7 years. I've worked for
Okay,
Sornex for 7 years, and
okay.
that actually started. I did some speaking at Summer Strong, our flagship event, when I was just still powerlifting an athlete. Had never been there, didn't know Bert, didn't know the company outside of knowing their equipment. And when I spoke there, got a really good reception to that, and was invited to come to some events and represent Sornex at the events. And then I got hurt, and I talked to Bert about 4 months after I got hurt, and I was like, "Hey man, look, I just can't. I can't keep this up and keep doing this thing the way that I am. I need a job, not a sponsorship or a partnership." I said, if it's a janitor's job, I just need something consistent to build my life forward on. Because when I was powerlifting, I mean, I was doing 3 to 4 seminars a month. I'm flying all over the country. That was my income, was those seminars and coaching.
Oh
And
wow,
I could, I,
it's actually your job. That was you actually
that,
made money
that was my
doing that.
entire existence, was coaching. I had an ebook. I had seminars around the ebook and my
Oh
coaching.
wow. Okay.
And it was very lucrative. I mean, I was doing, like, for example, just the power of the internet for a guy that could write an ebook and has no knowledge of anything.
Hmm.
I was able to build a Facebook group of 10,000 members under that powerlifting group, and a majority of
Wow.
them had bought that book. So,
Wow.
or knew of it in some case,
Right.
but like
Yeah, yeah.
it just kind of, it caught at the right moment. And dude, I'm a big believer in time and place.
Me
Like,
too. Me too.
I was just a guy that was vocalizing my training. I was breaking it down and I was sharing it with people when not very many other people were. So it just had this meteoric rise, and people kind of started rooting for me and stuff. That's where Sornex got involved and were supporting me with some of my options to coach and travel and whatnot. So when I took the job, it was more of like, hey, we're gonna use you as a marketing. We're gonna do podcasts. We're gonna do this, and it transitioned to where, through my injury, my training changed so much. My focus on life changed so much that I went on a hunt with Bert, and we had an amazing time. And we both kind of were like, well, he was, but I just kind of echoed that there was something in the outdoor space that was organic and real within Sornex. So we started an outdoor division, and I kind of switched over to that about 5 years ago, and have really just focused on that as an industry, the people within the industry, like Josh at Montana Knife Company that and Ryan, even through his proximity to the outdoor world. Because I think for Sornex and Bert's ultimate vision of the outdoors is that's just a facet of what a human being can possess, is woodsmanship and hunting skill and just whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at it from a training standpoint, to the kind of people that Sornex is around and surrounds himself with, and then also in the outdoor space, I just think it's been a blessing for me to have the opportunity to kind of juggle between all those worlds. And it's helped me grow, not only in business, but just in how I view life. Like guys like
Hmm.
yourself that I would have never met had this injury and turn in my position never taken place. And learning, like, you're a guy that's like, hey dude, I'm just an idiot, but I just kept going, never took no for an answer, kept following my way forward. And
Absolutely.
I look at you now, and you're doing amazing things. Guys like Mickler, who have built that order of man just so big and powerful and strong and good. None of that would have happened without Sornex. None of that would have happened without my injury. None of that would have happened without the transition to the outdoor space. But for me now, I think my biggest focus is like just being a total human, like as good as you can be at everything that you do. It's not like you have to be perfect. It's not like you have to be the greatest. And actually, I saw something this morning that kind of paralleled and was a light bulb for me. They talked about all these great players about the NBA. It was like, you want the best dunker, maybe it's Dr. J or Dominique Wilkins. You want the best defender, maybe it's this guy. The best scorer, maybe it's Wilt Chamberlain. It was like, if you want the guy that embraces all of that, it was Michael Jordan.
Mm,
He
yes.
was not the best at any one thing, but
Yep.
he was the best across all things. And
Yep.
that's what I'm trying to do now, because before my mindset was I have to be the best lifter in the world. I have to be perfect. I can't be beat. I can't be broken. And when you are broken, then you realize you can be beaten. So is it like, is the endeavor perfection, or is the endeavor the process? And for
I love
me,
that.
you know, the result was better and better when my process got better and better. So that's kind of what I've tried to do, is just build myself not only as like the biggest, strongest human being that I can be, but somebody who is, the counterpoint to that being empathetic and understanding and tender in ways, and like expressing my artistic side. So I've tried to just feel out myself as a whole human, extract the parts of me that I enjoy the most, that feel the best, and build on those things, and just strengthen the things that maybe I don't enjoy or I'm not good at, to where that everything is just a little bit better as I go. Instead of this immediate rush to be like, I got to do it all right now. It's like, yeah, life is short, but I can't do it all right now. So what can I do today that's better for me tomorrow? That kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, I know when I met you the first time we were in Hawaii, and we'd never, I didn't know who you were.
Yeah.
I just showed up, and I was actually going to the airport to pick you up. Everybody else had kind of come in. Ryan and all those guys were there, and they says, "Hey, will you go pick up Brandon? He's waiting at the airport." And I'm like, well, how am I going to know who he is? And they're like, you'll know, man. He's got a presence, And I'm like, all right. And so I come pulling up, and you're there at the front of the airport in Molokai, and I'm like, oh, that's him.
Yeah.
And you're very intimidating. Like you said, you have a very intimidating look. You're aware of that. But after being there, for a week with you, it's like you're a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that you um and like you said, I didn't know you 10, 15 years ago, but maybe you wasn't a teddy bear there then,
Yeah.
but now you're realizing that you don't have to be this big macho guy that just intimidates everybody.
Yeah.
That's going to turn people off.
Yeah.
And so I think what I love about you is everything I've seen from you. We hunted in Hawaii that year, then we went to Minnesota.
Yep.
You're a student, and I
Hmm.
love that. You're everything you do. I can just see. I'm a little less than that, because I'm the guy who shows up. I'm like, here's my bow. You're like, what is it? I'm like, I don't know. Let me read. What are your arrows? I have no idea. I don't know what broadhead I'm shooting. And you made your arrows. You put your fletchings on.
Yeah.
And I envy that. Because
Hmm.
it's and with food, you did that with food there. Back then I wasn't as I'm way more into food now from my
Yeah.
travels and things like that. But you kind of came into camp and you're like, dude, let's cook the heart. Let's do some liver. And I was like, man, I want to become a student. And like you're saying, you're never too old, and you're never
Right.
too old to change.
Yeah. Well, man, I think so. For me, I won't say I had a rough upbringing, because my parents love me, but my parents worked a lot. So kind of just ran with some rough kids and got in trouble. Boys will be boys stuff, never anything malicious or whatever. But I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder as a proving ground, like want my dad's approval, want my mom's approval. And as I got older, my coaches became like secondary fathers. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like all my
Mm-hmm.
coaches were hard nosed. They saw something in me, and they pushed me and they challenged me. So I started to think that, okay, I have to have this persona of like this rigid, hardline, do or die, F the world kind of mentality.
Intimidation.
Yeah. And as I got into powerlifting, I got bigger and bigger and started getting heavily tattooed. And I had a friend who's in psychology, and he spoke to me one day, and he was like, man, you really changed yourself. Because when he met me, I was 210 pounds, 220 pounds. And when he sees me again, I'm like 320 pounds, and
Yeah.
obviously fully tattooed.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, what are you trying to say with all this? Like, what's your
Hmm.
message with all this? And I was like, I
Interesting.
don't know. I don't know. He was like, do you think you ever just want to scare people away? Like you don't really want people to be your friend or feel welcome. He was like, you don't look like a welcoming face, and I know you're a very good person. Like, what's the point
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
And he's, I shared some things with him, and he was like, did you ever think you were just trying to disappear and become somebody else? And
Mm.
I was like, holy like, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. And I wasn't sitting down thinking that when I got tattooed, but when I looked at my tattoos, all of them were like defiant. like, or dark or mad or like negative connotation to my tattoos. Like
Mm.
my roses all indicate people that I lost, tragically. And I've got 4 or 5 of those, a lot of skulls, a lot of snakes, a lot of that stuff, but all of them have symbolism to dark times or hard times in my life. And my
Mm.
friend just challenged me. He said, how much better would you feel if your body was covered in positivity or not covered at
Wow.
all? He was like,
Wow.
what would you be if you were just standing here naked? Who are you?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
holy crap. So fast forward that conversation. I'm in Finland, in a place called Rovaniemi for a lifting event. And I'm kind of on my way out. I'm doing some coaching, kind of a guest appearance thing. And they're very big on sauna there, right? They're huge on sauna in Finland. It's the origin country.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to this spa, and everywhere there, like it's Europe, it's much more forward, progressive in a lot of ways. So we go in there, and it's like no towels allowed, only nude. So like being from America, being a little bit like intimidated by that fact, I walk in with my towel, and there's like this old master splinter type gatekeeper at the door, the guy putting the water on the rocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you've ever talked to anybody from Finland, they will not answer you in 2 seconds. Like if you ask them a question, it's like awkward pause, right?
Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
they're like, well, how can I answer if I don't contemplate?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy's sitting there, and in this very master splinter kind of way, he goes, I notice you have a towel. And I said, yeah. And he said, it's not allowed. And I said, okay, well, all right, I can do that. So I'm starting to undo it. He said, why are you not comfortable with yourself?
Mm.
He said,
Mm.
we come here to be comfortable with everyone because we
Mm.
are comfortable with ourselves. We cannot change these things. We cannot change who we are. We can only be
Yeah.
better than what we are, So
Yeah.
like these conversations are all going like a friend of mine and then a total stranger, like, who
Yeah.
are you? What are you ashamed of?
Yeah.
What are you hiding
Yeah.
here?
How old are you at this time?
Oh, I'm full grown man. Like I'm a full
Okay.
grown man at
Oh
this point.
yeah.
I'm
Oh yeah.
I mean, this would have been like 16, 17, somewhere in there. So like 7 years ago, I'm like 35
Oh
years old,
yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And, it's like, I'm not afraid of being naked, but it's just like, this is a new place, new culture, new thing. Like, it's just
Absolutely. I've
intimidating.
been there. I've been to Finland.
Yeah.
I've been there
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's just an uncomfortable
It
reality that they're
it is.
comfortable with.
Yep.
So that was like, who am I if I can't change my face. I can't change my foot size. I can't change my hand size, my dick size, my butt size. I can't change these parts of me. Like
Yep.
I am what I am. So start
This is me.
accepting that. And
Yeah.
dude, that was the reinvention point, was all of that
Mm.
kind of like, there were some other sequences in there, but like who you are is who you are. And it's like, those are the cards you're dealt. So do the best with it that you can and become the best version of that you can. And
Yeah.
when I started to have that realization that all of this was a front, like big and strong, was because I was little and weak inside.
Mm.
The hiding my skin away was because I didn't like the way that I looked or felt about myself. Like trying to make my body art when I didn't feel like it was.
Like
And I think,
camouflage. It's almost
yeah,
your camouflage.
well, it's like a
That's
chameleon.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to hide away wherever you're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, people talking like, and me in camp, like I'm a pretty vocal person, but like in general, I'm somewhat of an introvert that
Mm-hmm.
fronts with extroversion. Like
Mm.
I can have a buffer in my mind where I'm talking to everybody, but if it's like 3 or 4 people sitting at a table, I'm tend to be a little bit more quiet until I'm
Yeah.
comfortable, if that
Yeah. You
makes
do.
sense.
I know.
So from there, it's like, okay, let's start figuring out who you are. And I started figuring out books that I like to read and art that I like to view and music that was not heavy metal or rap, like instrumental stuff, like Spanish guitar, violins, and all this. Like, what do you
What do
actually
you
like?
really like? What do you really
Like,
like? Not what do people think you should like?
yeah, or like you've only had access to this bowl of food for
Yeah.
your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's bowls of food everywhere else, so start trying them. So that was me. I wanted to try different music, different foods, different books, different everything that I could do to explore and be like, I like that, I don't like that, I like that, I don't like that, because then I have a say in who I am. If
Mm.
I'm just a receiver, if I'm in the gym and it's always heavy metal and I don't say, well, have you heard this and let's try something else, then it's only going to be heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just figure out the things that made me burn inside, the things that made me excited for life, And a lot of times, like one of my favorite things in the world is when I see little old ladies or little old men and they judge me. You know, like I'm a heavily tattooed big dude, and you can kind of see they're different generations, so they have different viewpoints. But I love going out of my way to hold a door, or can I take your shopping cart, or can I help you out with something? Because then the onus is on them at that point to
Mm-hmm.
make a decision, right? Like I've
Yep.
already
Yep.
decided I'm going to go out of my way to be kind and show this person maybe I'm not what they think I am. But then it's like now it's on them. And some of them, the sweetest old ladies, oh, aren't you just the darling? Aren't you just this or that? And she's like, well, I didn't think you were going to be so nice. And like
Yeah.
that's what makes me feel good was that I can change somebody's perception even of just me. Like
Absolutely.
I just want to make them think. And that's what I do
Yeah.
with Peace, Love, and Meat too, is like, here's a quote or a piece of art or a song or this, that, and the other, all for free. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying do it. I'm not saying you have to love it. I'm just saying think about it.
It's out there.
You
It's
know,
out there.
exactly. And I think you do a lot of that too. Like if something's out there, you want to know what your feeling is on it because you've done it or tried it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just say, oh, it's great because so and so said so. I've done enough of that in my life.
Yeah.
So
So when was your injury? How old were you when you had your injury?
it was January 26, 2014. I was 31 years old, about to be 32.
So walk me through that. I mean, that's like you said, you went through some stuff. I'm sure that had to have been, I know some of your stories, that I've heard in
Yeah.
camp where you gone into some
Yep.
dark times. Was
Yeah.
that because of that? Where you kind of lost your
Well,
identity, or was that not because of that?
I think it was more than losing my identity. It was losing the wall of the identity that I'd created and kind of like having that man in the mirror moment of like, man, if you'd have just done things a little better and been a little better to yourself and the people around you, you probably wouldn't have gotten hurt because I was competing so frequently because I was scared of losing that momentum. I
Mm,
was afraid if I went 4 months without being a headline in powerlifting, then I was going to be forgotten or my seminars were going to cut down or I wasn't going to be able to sell ebooks or whatever. So I was kind of like trapped in this mindset for success. Like I have to be the best. I have to sell seminars. I have to do this. And while I was doing well at those things, I wasn't loving it, but I was
mm.
on that train and it was rolling.
Yep.
And when I got hurt, man, the world went dark because within a few days of my injury, companies that supported me and sponsored me and paid me were like, hey, we're just going to have to kind of pause this for a while until you get
Mm,
back on your feet. And
mm.
this was from people that I thought were my friends. Like
Yeah. Not
they,
business. Well, this is a
right.
relationship.
Yeah, I thought we were
That's
friends,
hard.
and not that them pulling back would have changed our friendship, but it was the callousness and the coldness of business that made me realize to them our business relationship was more important than our friendship.
Mm,
And that just started to kind of wake me up to like, well, who is in my life that's actually in my life for good? Like, who are the people that are going to be there rock solid no matter what? And dude, I looked around and I had alienated everybody. Like, I'd push family
mm.
away, I'd push friends away. Because dude, I was on that ladder, and I know you know people like this. Like
Oh
when
yeah.
you're moving up in success, you're not looking at the rung below you, even though that's the one that's propping your foot up. You're looking at the next one
Exactly.
for your hand. And dude, I became that guy, and I became so disgusted with myself over that. Like I had just abused friendships and used friendships, and then it was like, it ain't so good when it happens to you, is it? You know?
Right.
So it was kind of like a life lesson. And after my first injury, when I fell in March or January, I'm sorry, I was like, I was told that I would not walk for 10 months. So 10 months to the day, I planned to compete in Australia. And 10 minutes after he told me that, I stood up out of the bed with a nerve block in and shuffled my feet across the floor, which is stupid. But again, all of that was in a fear-based mindset where I was like, I have to get back to the platform because that's the only thing I'm good at. That's the only thing I'm respected for. That's the only thing I can make money at. And through that fervor to get back, I actually damaged my body further by like micro
Rushing it.
trauma that would cause reinfection of the knee. So I went through
Mm,
multiple infection surgeries for my knee, and it was all in a desire to just rush back and be back who I was and forget that it ever happened instead of addressing the fact of everything that was happening around me.
mm.
And on man, it was in April 2016, about 2 years of it. I just sat down one day and was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't figure it out. You know, it's like looking at a puzzle and you got two puzzle pieces left and neither one of them fit. That's how I felt.
Mm,
Like everything was so close, but everything was so far from what I ever thought it would be. Like I would just in a place and time that I never ever thought I would find myself. So I was like, I'm just not made for this life anymore. And wanted to kill myself that morning, April 12th, 2016. Took a bunch of pills and sat down with a pistol and kind of had a conversation with myself. And thankfully, what I recognized was that I didn't want to die so much as I didn't want to live how I'd been living.
mm,
So, thumb in the throat, get the pills out, put the gun down, call my
wow.
dad, and kind of explain to him what was going on. And like I told you, I'd pushed my parents away because they're like, we don't understand this powerlifting thing. We don't know what it is, how it's going to be successful. And to me, that was just like, you want to kill my dreams. You guys don't believe
Yeah.
in me. You don't
Yeah.
think
I'll
I can
show
do this.
you. Hmm.
Exactly. Proving ground, Brandon. Like I want to prove it, prove it, prove it.
Hmm.
And when my dad came in, that was probably the genesis for all the change because my dad is like the best blue collar dude in the world, but like hard. Like that generation of men is just hard. They're not able to emote as freely as guys like us.
Hmm.
And when my dad came in and kind of saw the shape that I was in and where I was mentally, well, first thing he did was just kind of put his hand on my shoulder, which like physical affection with my dad was kind of far and few between. Like there weren't a lot of hugs. He wasn't abusive by any stretch at all, but he'd swat your tail, kind of thing like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
But when he came in, he was like, Brandon, I got to tell you two things right now. Number one, I'm sorry. Like whatever put this distance between us and all that stuff, he said, I'm sorry. And the second thing he told me was, I love you. And I should have told you every single day.
Hey guys, let's step away from this conversation real quick with Brandon and talk about a couple things we have coming up with M42 Adventures. As you know, several of us, 21 of us, just got back from Africa a few days ago. And what an experience, an amazing, amazing adventure. First time for me ever going to South Africa and just loved it. Everybody who went had an amazing time. Several of them, honestly, most of them are coming back next year. And so just a wonderful trip. And we're going to be announcing our 2025 South Africa experience dates here in the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, it's filling up fast and we've already filled up about 40% of the spots and we haven't even marketed it yet. So if you are interested, stay tuned. Like I said, follow us on Instagram, the newsletter, and listen to the podcast and make sure you're ready for when we drop those dates. Also wanted to talk about our community. We've been working on this for 8 months. It's called The Genesis, and we are very excited about this. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears been going into this, and we are going to be launching that September 1st. We're offering September, October, and November free memberships, and we are very excited about this. It's going to be an amazing outdoor community. There's a lot of value and information and lots of good stuff in there, networking. And so stay tuned for that as well. Just wanted to update you on those couple things coming up here in the next couple weeks. And let's get back to this conversation.
And dude, like to me, looking at a man that I thought was incapable of saying those things, like I'm incapable of being not that rigid, hard nosed person that he was, I saw a real human moment in my
Mm,
dad. And ever since then, he's been that version. He's never been the
mm.
old version to me.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I think from that point, it was when I stopped seeing him as dad and I started just seeing him as a human being and a man. And I think everybody goes through that. Like you get
Absolutely.
old enough, you start to see that transition. So I was like, this is maybe a month after or so, and I'm like, man, if my dad can truly possess all that and figure it out and become empathetic and understanding and loving, maybe that's what I'm needing to do right here. So that's what I just dedicated was like, if 1,000 holes or 1,000 bad decisions put me in this hole, 1,001 is going to get me out.
Mm,
It's just like I have to do one thing better by every decision. And dude, it was down to what I'm going to watch on TV. Is it going to be something I learn from or just space out to? So I stopped watching cable. I started watching more YouTube videos, like
mm,
learning stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting down at a dinner, is it going to be pizza that's going to make me feel like shit, or is it going to be a steak and potato or something? So everything, like, dude, I was like a drug addict. Like every
Mm.
single decision in my day was viewed as a win or a loss because I was afraid if I kept making more bad decisions, I would put the gun in my mouth.
Mm.
So every day I was trying to build myself forward away from that day. And like I was telling my kid not too long ago, I was like, nobody wakes up one day that's got money in the bank, great marriage, successful, happy, and they're like, you know what? Heroin sounds like a great idea today. Let's go shoot some
Right.
heroin.
Right.
It's when they've had 10,000 other failures and they just want it to stop. They just want the pain to go away. So they find that. And that's what I was like, I was going so fast because when I was still, that's when the pain would hit, the reality that I wasn't who I was. So for 2 years, I was trying to go faster and faster and faster and create my own momentum instead of like, it was the wrong momentum. It was the wrong
Mm.
choices. It was the wrong direction forward. And it just put me in a place where I didn't want to live anymore. So really my dad kind of being a catalyst for that, having the moment where I saw that people were now treating me how I had treated other people in the past made me realize I didn't want to be who I was anymore. So started losing weight, started hiking, started jogging, all these things just to like get back to who I was the last time I remembered I was happy was like 14 years old. You know, like
Wow.
like like
Wow.
carefree, like carefree
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Not a
Yeah.
care
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
What was I doing? I was running, I was swimming, I was playing soccer, I was playing pickup basketball. I couldn't do all of
Mm-hmm.
those things. So it was like, well, you can't play basketball right now. What can you do? I can hike.
Mm.
Well, you can't hike that mountain, but what can you do? Oh, I can go sit in a tree stand on this guy's property and deer hunt, and I can hike into that point and sit in a deer stand. So all these little things just opened up to me to be like, I'm doing the same stuff I was doing when I was a kid. I just alienated myself from all that stuff thinking I had to do something different. But now that I've gotten back to the things that made me feel good as a kid, they make me feel good as a grown man.
Mm.
So that's what I'm trying to do now is access those things that make me feel good, allow me to impart that on other people, not just myself. Like, how can I make them feel good? Can I feed them food? Can I share a story? Can I share a concert? Can I share a movie or something? Like, I just want to be a good person that makes the room better, not for myself, but for everybody in it.
Yeah. What was that timeline of, the, the gun and the pills too, where it you know, kind of clicked that you're going to make it.
So I really think that January of 14 to April of 16, that was the morning that I had the gun and the pills. And then
Okay.
I think it was like that was the seed, but it took a little while for it to
Yeah,
take root and grow.
absolutely.
I think that the real turning point for me was sometime in 17. And then in 2018, for my birthday in March, I told Bert I wanted to row 100,000 meters in a day, for just whatever reason, just to set a goal and have something to work towards. So I went to Sornex and they set it up. And the thing about it is like I get there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, dude, guys start coming in and they get on a rower beside me and they're like, I can't row all day, but I'm gonna row 2,000 meters with you. I'm gonna row a
Oh, that's
thousand
cool.
meters with you. I'm
Oh,
gonna
that's
row
awesome.
5,000 meters with you. And my
I'm
buddy,
here. I got you.
yeah, yeah. And credit to Mike Jones. He's a dude that's in the Sornex world. Big dude, like offensive lineman guy. He
Mm.
came in and he rode like a half marathon with me or something, like a 10K or so. I can't remember the distance, but it was like for a big dude to be up that early, come in there to support me. And it was like, man, these are all the people that have always rooted for me and supported me. And I wasn't hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
was really when I realized, man, Sornex is like an extended family to me. The people here believe in me. The people here support and invest in me. I got to start being aware of all the people that are doing that. So really probably in that 4 year window, 2 years to rock
Wow.
bottom and kind of 2 years back out of that hole to where, okay, life can be good again. But yeah, probably about a 4 year window where it was really, really dark for a long time.
See, and I don't think people realize that. I've never been through that. Gratefully.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just kind of hearing your story, and I'm trying to put myself in that situation. But I know there's a lot of people out there that are in that, and I think that that's good for them to hear because we're in a time where people want instant gratification. They just want
Yeah.
they want the six pack now, they want the money now, and I think it's good for them to hear that Yeah, and I love hearing from you that you say, the injury almost became a blessing. It is a
Dude,
blessing, right?
it is. Well, it's like um, you never know what worse luck your bad luck saved you from. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And like,
yeah.
I imagine myself if I had never gotten hurt, which was bad luck. I think the worst luck would have been that I was 350 pounds the day that I fell, more or less. I was
Mm,
like 338. So,
crazy.
what was that doing to my heart? What was that doing to my liver and my kidneys and my bones and all those things? And
Saved your life.
I would not have slowed down had
Wow.
I would have just either gotten bigger or pushed more to do more competitions or something. But that injury, I thought life was over. Like I
Mm,
literally remember laying there and my legs unable to move, and I was like, it's over. Like it's over. But then to come back to a point, I mean, you've seen how I walk now. I still have a little hitch in my giddy up, but
mm-hmm.
um, dude, it hasn't slowed me down at all. Like it's the only two things I can't do is I cannot jump. Like I can't take like a two-step jump, like you're going to dunk a basketball. I can
Mm-hmm.
flat-footed jump, but I can't take that step and like spring.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't flat out sprint. I can
Mm-hmm.
run pretty good, but I can't flat out sprint. So,
Mm-hmm.
talking to my doctor, he was like, I don't know how much you're going to be trying to dunk a basketball or sprinting, but he was
Yeah.
like, you're in a pretty good shape for what you've been through. 19 surgeries, still have every part of my actual birth knee except one cadaver tendon on the quad.
Mm.
So right now I'm kind of in that juggling stage of when is it time to get the knee replacement? When is it time to kind of fix some of that stuff because the knee where it doesn't straighten all the way has radiated to my hip, which is radiating to my spine. So it's starting to show some wear and tear. But dude, it's been 10 years since the injury, and I've lived more life in those 10 years than I did in the previous 30. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
or a better
Yeah,
life,
man.
really.
Yeah. And that's another thing is I watch you now and I've been just bombarding myself with podcasts the last week. I've done 7 or 8 with different guests.
Yeah,
Um, and just had Eric Chesser on. Do you know Eric Chesser with
yeah,
Hush?
yeah. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he was on and we were talking about like nutrition and things like that. And I think that that's, something that I see with you that people don't realize. A lot of us just think food is for enjoyment or fuel.
Yeah.
And man, there's so much to, your nutrition and what you're putting in your body, like you said. How did you, so you're 350 pounds. I mean, you wasn't necessarily fat. You were a beast. I mean, that was a lot of
Yeah.
muscle.
Yeah.
How did you know how do you know what your weight should be and what you wanted to get to? Do you just kind of feel it or how do you kind of know where you want to be at?
I would say in some degree it's the weight classes and the structure of the competition. So like you got a 220 class, 242, 275, 308, and super heavyweight.
Mm,
And as when I started, I had done 220 and 242 and done well. So the next group of strongest guys was like the 275. So I kind of ballooned my weight up to 275, started
crazy.
being competitive and winning there. And then I went up to 308. And when I was winning and competitive there, I was like, the strongest guys are super heavyweight. So I just kind of built to chase the competition and the strongest guys. And from a food standpoint, I would just eat for the weight that I wanted to be. And
Right.
the system that I followed was 15 pounds up or 15 pounds down is all I can focus on at any one time. I can't say I want to lose 50 pounds
Hmm.
because within that 50 pounds, there's probably 3 to 4 macro and micronutrient changes as far as like a weekly structure of what that looks like.
Mm,
So for me, I would break up 50 pounds into, okay, here's 15 pounds, here's 15 pounds, and then here's a 10-pound cycle and a 10-pound cycle. So that's my 50. So what I would do is when I was gaining weight and I wanted to gain to 15 pounds, I would eat everything under the sun imaginable that I could possibly get my hands on until I weighed 15 pounds heavier.
mm,
Then I would go back and I would say it was this many calories that got me here per day because I would track that stuff loosely.
mm-hmm.
And then I would say, how can I restructure that with healthy food? Protein first, fat second, carbs third. And I would just build my calories around that. I would start eating clean food. I'd probably lose about 7, 8 pounds. But then my body, wanting and having been to that bigger level before, would comfortably grow right back into it. So all
Wow.
of my stuff was like this accordion or like a
Yeah.
stair step effect. I never said 15 pounds and stayed there. I just pushed my body to show it that it was possible. And then I reminded it of how I used to be eating, which is cleaner food. And then I just adjusted the calories on clean food to get me there. But it's kind of like with muscle memory. If you've benched 200 pounds in your life or 300 pounds and you don't touch a weight for a year and you meet somebody that's never lifted weights, you will bench 300 pounds or your maximum faster than that person will achieve it for the first time.
Oh
So
wow, I
for
didn't know
me,
that.
yeah, muscle, like, dude, it's once your body has been through something,
Hmm.
it already has the adaptive reminders of how to do it again.
And probably some mental that I know this is possible, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
probably a
Yeah,
lot mental, not just muscle.
exactly. So that was what
Hmm.
I was using and playing upon was the fact that I would trick my body to get up to the weight that I wanted by any means necessary, come back down a little bit better, cleaner, and then get there in a better condition. That's why at 325, I had visible abs. At
Wow,
335 to 350, I was just kind of on the backside of my injury and trying to be big just to be big. And I wasn't as defined those last couple of years, but at my best, 335, I was still, you could still see the separation from my obliques to my abs for
that's
sure.
crazy. Do you
Yeah.
still, so do you struggle with that today? I mean, as far as, you're what, how old are you? 40?
42.
42? Do you struggle? I mean, like, most people our age, I'm 44, just turned 44. Do you struggle with that? Is it a constant battle now to not jump up there? Or do you just,
Well,
how do you
man,
battle that?
so it's like this, I'll use it to you in business terms. It's like there would be a benefit to me at some level of going back into powerlifting. I'm sure that some of those companies would sponsor me right away. I'm sure that I could sell some seminars right away. But it's like if you own a business and you're putting 100% of your time in it and it's causing every other business you own to fail.
Hmm.
And this is like, yeah, this is my passion project. This is what I care about, but it's not
Hmm.
making any money and it's causing everything else in your life to suffer. Then
Hmm.
you're going to sell that business. I know that you're smart enough to either pull back and recalibrate that business and make it something else, or
Hmm.
just sell it and go back
Cut
to
it.
your other businesses.
Hmm.
And I wasn't capable of doing that with powerlifting because that was my income, that was my passion, that was everything. But everything else around me was suffering. So for me to go back and entertain that idea now, I've flirted with it because it's like, can you control the dragon when you have a better perspective on life? But I don't know what an 800-pound squat would gain me right now. Like, what would
Yeah.
it actually give my life
Yeah.
um, to get an 800-pound squat? And I would have to squat 900 to go into the 900 pounds raw. I've squatted over 1,000 in gear, but 900 pounds raw to actually surpass my best self. And I've
Yeah.
never done that in my life.
Yeah.
19 surgeries, 10 years later, how much
Right.
effort would I have to give to even potentially chase that number? And what would I be giving up? And it would be everything because I
Mm.
was never a genetic gift. I'm not going to say I didn't have genetic gifts, but I'm not a guy that could look at a barbell and just get stronger. I had to work and plan and train for every ounce of progression that I got. I graduated high school at 175 pounds.
Oh
Like
wow.
I was a skinny endurance athlete,
Wow,
and I
you almost doubled your weight. I mean, you
I
literally
yeah
almost,
yeah
that's
I did.
wild. That's
And
wild.
so for me, it's like there was just nothing good in that space except the victory,
Yeah.
and that was the only thing that mattered. I remember um, going, and that didn't even matter sometimes. In Australia, I won in a competition before my injury, and they raised my hand up, and I was pissed because I believed I could do more.
Oh
So
wow.
I did enough to win, but I didn't do what I believed I was capable of. And that
Wow.
diminished my ability to celebrate the win because I was always chasing a potential that I believed in rather than
Mm,
beating the next guy over because
that's
in my head, I
interesting.
already believed I was already ahead of him. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Even if I wasn't,
yeah.
I just told
Yeah.
myself I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now my biggest problem for a long time was getting under a bar. I alienated the bar from my training for like 8 years. I
Mm.
wouldn't touch a bar because I had a reference for how strong I was with it. And the immediate negative feeling of like struggling on a bench press with 250 pounds versus when I benched 600 pounds raw was like, oh, you're just a weak ass bitch or something like that. Excuse my language. But like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would start trash talking myself
Yeah.
to a point where this isn't good for me. Like I don't feel
Yeah.
better when I leave. I feel worse. So there's just not really a rhyme or a reason. Like I definitely want to be capable and strong, but
Hmm.
I can squat 2 times my body weight. I can bench my body weight plus some. I can deadlift 2 or plus times my body weight. And like,
What's your
that's,
weight
that's
now? What's your weight now? What's your
as,
walking
as
around
of
weight?
230.
230. Okay, that's what I am. I'm 230.
Yeah. Yeah. So like,
So
you know,
how do you know that you 230 just feels good? That just is kind of your number where you just, it just feels right and that's what you want to
yeah,
maintain?
yeah, because like with jiu-jitsu and everything, when I get to be like 240, so I give myself a swing. I still do the 10 pounds. I'll go down to 220,
Mm, mm.
but as soon as I hit 220, I'm coming back up. And when I hit 240, I'm going back down. So I'm always kind of in this swing state because I feel like my body is always kind of on its toes and I make faster adjustments like that.
Mm.
So 230 feels really, really good. When I'm 220 and I grapple, I don't feel like I have the pop or the power that I'm
Interesting.
used to. And
10
240,
pounds.
I don't feel like I have the speed at 240 that I have
That's
at 230.
interesting. Wow, you got it
So,
that dialed in to where you know that that's where
well,
your kind of sweet spot is.
yeah, but you have to kind of, and I don't want to say this and sound arrogant, but
Mm.
like for lack of a better term, I was a professional athlete for 15 years.
Absolutely.
So I was very dialed in and in tune with my body. I know how to contort myself if I need a vertebrae to pop. I know exactly how to contort myself and like twist myself so I can find
Mm.
that vertebrae.
Mm.
So I am very, very in tune with how I feel at all times.
Yeah.
And when I go to a session and I can get in 10 good 5 minute rounds in an hour and leave there like depleted, but like walking out happy, smiling, that has been between 228 and 234. So that's my
Wow.
window of like, I
That's
feel
crazy.
really, really good. When I'm 240, it's like 8 rounds. And I'm like, God, today just kicked my tail. Like I don't
Yeah.
got it. And when I'm 220, I'm like, man, you were beating my tail today. You were
Hmm.
stronger than I was. And it's like, so that 230 just kind of fills me out. I eat a little bit more freely at 230 than 220 because 220 is basically carnivore. And
Right.
230 is more of like I've got fruits and rice and potatoes and things. And 240 is like I'm eating a Snickers bar here and there,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But every bit
When
of
did
that
you
is
get into jiu-jitsu? When did that come about? How long
19,
really? Okay, so
2019. Yeah.
not too long ago, 4 or 5 years
No,
ago.
I had done a couple of years at a school that I would just say was like you learned some, but the application of it was so regressed. Like it would be like me handing you a book on karate and you learning some of the poses and stuff, and then telling me you want to fight me in a karate tournament. Like
Mm, mm,
you're not going to have the hands-on experience. The school I go to now is a train. Some of the best competitors that you can imagine, and like just phenomenally good people. Like as high as a level of our competitors they are, as people, they just dominate
mm,
themselves on the platform. Like they're phenomenal people. Like
mm-hmm.
I don't know how to put it, but this gym now,
This beast.
well, and it is, but nobody there. When you walk in there, nobody is like, "Holy shit, that's like Brock Lesnar." I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's all guys that
Skill.
just look very normal.
Yeah.
Maybe a little athleticism or to their build or whatever, but like nobody when you walk in there at first impression is like, "Oh, this guy's going to kick my tail."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the first little bit that I went, there's a woman, she's been on TV fighting. Her name's Linda. She's like 126, 130 pounds. She wrecked me. Every time that we would open roll, she would just
That's
destroy me. And I mean, I'm
yeah.
260 at that point. Like
Yeah. It's wild.
so that's when I learned that it wasn't about strength and bruteness. It was more about refined action and decision making under stress. And
Mm-hmm.
that lesson has carried over to my life so much because if you can do it when somebody's trying to choke you out or break your arm and make good decisions, you make plenty of bad ones too. But if you can learn to make the good decisions and stay calm, dude, it just trickles out into everything else. So from the outdoor space to the jujitsu, I have a competitive aspect that was missing from powerlifting in my life, but I have the enjoyment aspect that was also missing from my life in powerlifting because I get to hunt and hike and camp. That satisfies one aspect, and the jiu-jitsu keeps me in shape, keeps me feeling good, as well as satisfying that competitive nature. Like I don't need to be a world champion. I can go in and get 10 good rounds, and if I win three of them, but I learned something and I was able to accomplish a maneuver that I'd never done before, that's a victory for me all day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to fool anyone or myself into thinking I'm the best in the world. Like, if I were to fight a Gordon Ryan or somebody like that, it would be over in about 3 seconds and I'd be broken. But
Mm-hmm.
like, being able to stand as a man and hold my own and feel confident, that I can take care of myself, I feel that, and that's
Yeah.
really what I'm looking for, because if I can take care of myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, then I can afford that to other people around me. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's the best version of me is better for everybody else that's around me that I care about.
Absolutely. I had do you know Kip Sorensen? Are you
Oh yeah.
familiar with him?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, he came out. I went and did a Ryan's Uprising event here in Pine Valley with 20 guys, and they did. I've never done jujitsu, never ever had done it, and we went to whatever you call it, a gym, I guess, here in
Yeah.
St. George that they just rented. It was empty, and Kip put on a little training, and then I ended up having him on the podcast a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he's a black belt in jujitsu, and man, it was so eye-opening. I cannot even explain it to people how, one from being in that couple hours of training, and like you said, having I'm 6'5", 235 pounds, and having another man put their hands on me and control me, and it's like it's so much more psychological than I ever would have thought. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable, and I don't have that. I don't.
Yeah.
I need to get into it.
Well, there's a guy, he's just great, and he's at my school, and he wants to let you work. Like he doesn't want to just come in and beat you, because he can. Like
Mm-hmm.
he could
Mm-hmm.
destroy me anytime he wants. But he wants to throw me like situations and let me work through them, let me figure them out. And like if I give my arm when I shouldn't, and he'll take it and he'll be like, "Let's go back and work that again. And
I
this is what
love
you
that.
should do." So it's like all of this stuff. But dude, when he actually gets in the mind of, no, you're not going to control me, I'm going to beat you, it's 10 seconds, 10
Wow.
seconds, 10
Wow.
seconds. Because it's one or two moves that he's just waiting on. And that's what's so dangerous about jujitsu, is a guy like him will let you think you're winning. It will feel
Yep.
like you're winning. And then you
Mm-hmm.
are literally walking into the shark's teeth. Like you are
Yep.
just walking right into the deep water with a shark. And that's what I love about it, is those games where you can get into it and you have an equal opponent, then it's just hell's all loose at that point. But if you have somebody that's skilled, I like watching somebody and how they maneuver and bait somebody into what they want them to do, even when that other person thinks they're winning. Dude, that's the best part of jujitsu. Is like, I was watching a match and the announcers were like, "Oh my gosh, he's dominating," and then in 1 second, the guy on the bottom just flipped his leg and broke his foot, and he was like, "Well, I knew that was setting up all the time, because he was really aggressive with this move, but he was
Mm.
lax on his defense of his foot." So it's
Mm.
like you have to be aware of your forelimbs and your neck at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
It's wild. That's why I love it.
It's terrifying to me. I told Kip, just like I said, watching that and being in there for a couple hours and watching, how he says he's 3, 4 steps ahead, and man, it's like a beautiful chess is the way I described it,
Oh
with your
yeah,
body,
yeah,
and he told me something that actually made it really good for me, because I've thought about getting into it for a year or two, hearing Ryan, and I seen all you guys into it, and um, but again, it's where you get in your head and you're like, I don't want to go start something and look like an idiot. I'm gonna
yeah,
go in there. I'm 6'5", people are gonna think, oh, here comes a beast, and I don't know anything, and I'm gonna get whooped. And Kip says, dude, we actually admire you guys more. We see a new guy walk into our gym and sign up that's never done this. I admire him as much as a black belt, because we've been there where we've seen these guys, trying to start anything
yeah,
in life is scary. It's intimidating. And that really helped me, that sentence of thinking, these guys aren't judging me that I'm bad. They're respecting me that I walked in and I'm starting.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. Uh, to me, that was a little bit of why jujitsu is probably what allowed me to enjoy the recurve bow a little bit
Mm,
more, because I had understood the techniques of martial art, not in the moves in the gym, but in the fact of everyday practice is necessary to actually get better. Like at our school, if I miss a week and I go back a week later, you would think, you're still going to be good. Those guys adapted something in a week that I'm behind on. And then you miss
wow.
2 weeks. And it's like, so that was how it was for me with the recurve. Is it's like, you don't have an aiming mechanism as far as like a sight. You don't have a draw hold as far as the cams. So it's like, this is a feel thing. Like this is all about your feel and how you connect with your bow and how you use it. And it's martial, because you have to shoot it every day, or you will go out there and your first 5 arrows the day after will be awful. I don't care how good
Mm,
you are,
mm,
So it's like, to me, compound is like a rifleman. That's a skill that is that's an acquisition skill that doesn't depreciate as quickly. Like if you don't shoot your bow for a month, you can go out and put your 20 pin on something and hit it. But
absolutely.
with a recurve, it's a lot like throwing a baseball or something. You have to get that feel and
Mm,
keep that feel. And one day I might be working on where my release is and how my release hand opens up. And then the next day I'm focusing on where I'm aiming with my eye, how I'm holding my bow. So each day gets a little bit of emphasis, and I do drills with it. I never had to do drills with my compound. Like, not saying that
no.
it's easy. It's a skill. Like, it is an
Yeah,
acquired
it's
skill.
not a recurve
And
though, at all.
no, it's not the same thing. So I think my life is trending a little bit towards that martial life, where I understand that the things I value need work and need practice every day. They need attention every day, even if it's just, okay, that's an order, good, 2 seconds, but I know that something's taken care of. And then, I'm trying to work towards the things that make me grow, think, feel,
Challenge.
experience and challenge life different. Yeah. Because it would be very easy for me to get in a routine of like, yeah, I've got a little money in the bank and I do some cool stuff. Life is great. But as great as I can, or as honestly as I can make that statement, it's not that longing of like, I have to prove something anymore. It's like,
Mm.
I want to know everything that I can, and I want to experience everything that I can.
And you're doing it for
And,
you. I think that's the difference is because when I see you with the recurve, it's,
yeah.
I was gonna, it's in my notes right here, on my paper where, why the recurve? Because you're making yourself uncomfortable. You're making
Yeah.
you're making a sport harder. I see you come out to Minnesota with a recurve, and I'm like, we have compound bows now, bro. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But that's your
Well,
that's your personality is you want to take it to that next level, and I admire that.
yeah, well, I appreciate it. But man, it really started. The recurve came into my life talking to a guy that had kind of done the same thing. I don't think he had the same life experiences or struggles that I did, but he certainly had some struggles. And he definitely came from a I'm going to prove you wrong mentality. And he had kind of been challenged to pick up a recurve, and the guy was just phenomenal with it and just did some amazing things as far as hunting and shooting. And I was talking to him, and he's like, "Hey man, send me your address. I want to send you something." And I open this package up when it comes, and it's a recurve. It's 3 sets of limbs and a riser for my recurve. And
Hmm.
I hit him up, and I was like, "Dude, what in the world?" He's like, "After talking to you, you're the kind of person that can do this."
Mm.
And that just for me, it'd be like, freaking Michael Jordan handing you a basketball and say, "Hey man, I saw you just over there dribbling. You got something, but here's my
Mm.
basketball. I want you to have it." Like, dude,
Yeah.
that's just like juice. It's
Yeah,
like something
absolutely.
in your body that's like, this is a person that has accomplished this, and they believe in me to be able to do it.
And he
I'm
knows
going to
what to
do it.
look for. He
Yeah,
knows what to see, and he saw it, and that's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And that's another reason why like I enjoy talking about it and sharing about it, because personally, through Peace, Love, and Meat, I think we've put a few bows in people's hands for the first time bow owners.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
four or five guys that have picked up a recurve from their compound. And I'm not sitting here saying it's better or it's worse or it's harder or it's less. It's like,
It's different.
it's different. And it's just one of those things that spoke to me, where the compound is like ultra precision. And this is more of like an art.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of, you color outside the lines. It's okay, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's definitely cost me some opportunities as far as sponsorship and stuff like that. Just because it's a different world. Like, they're not selling a million recurve bows every year. It's all compound
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of my own defense from the industry. It kept me in the industry because I'm with Sornex and all that stuff, but it separated me. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got that, like you, I've got that little bit of rebellious, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you streak. And it's worked out well for me. Like, nobody's alienated me. I haven't alienated anybody for it, but it's just given me my own beat to my own drummer.
Yeah, I've got an uncle. I think he's like 60 now, and he's come to Hawaii the last 2 years. Um,
Yeah.
so when I came with buddies, right? We all did buddies, and then the next year I did buddies again, And then after that, I started bringing my buddies and some family members. And
Yeah.
he comes out with a recurve, man, and he's got like the flint tips. He makes the tips, the points, wood arrows. You know, gets the feathers. And he's a 60-year-old guy from here in Utah that's just an old cowboy, and that's how he grew up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he brings his compound too. He'll bring his compound too, and he'll kind of carry both. And I'm like, man, why do you pack that recurve around, you know? And he says, there's nothing you can't explain, you know, taking an animal this way. You know, he says it's just, and I understand that it's just poetic, you know, and
Yeah.
it goes back to the beginning of us, you know, it's as far back as you can go and so I respect it, but I'm one of those guys where, you know, he has a big buck come in and it's, you know, he's only really, really good up to like 30 yards, you know, and so one comes in at 45 yards and he can't take the shot. And I'm like, I just couldn't handle that. You know, I'm one of those guys that wants the result. So you got to, that's where I think like you with jiu-jitsu, you've come so much in control of your mind that you're, you know, it's just, you've kind of processed it all. You've got the big picture and it's like, it's not about killing that animal.
Right.
Right. Am I speaking out of place there? Is that kind of how you feel?
No, it's, I'll be honest. Like I'm an aggressive hunter in the fact that I want success. I want to prove that I can master this field, this hillside, or this mountain, that I can outthink and outmaneuver this animal. But what happened to me, because they call it the compound regret syndrome or the phantom compound syndrome when you switch.
Yeah,
It's like you
I
get
can
to a
see
point
that.
on it. You get to a point on a deer where it's like 42 yards. And you're like, if I'd had my compound, you'd be dead right now. If I'd had my compound, you'd be dead right now. Well, when you get past that stage, I think you get to the point where you're like, okay, I got to 40 yards, which used to be like impossible. So can I get to 25? And
Mm,
you fail your way to 25 yards over
mm,
time. You figure out how to get closer. I'll be honest, the furthest shot I've killed an animal with my recurve is 31. I killed a turkey. I've killed a few between 25 and 30, but the majority of my kills have come between 1 foot and about 15 yards.
wow.
The majority, the lump
Yeah.
sum. But it
Yeah.
comes from the fact of like, I came from the school of thought that, hey, if I can get to 60, you're dead
Mm-hmm.
with my compound.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just had to change the number. If I get to 15 yards, you're dead. But then there's times where you get to 15 yards and it's like, that animal doesn't even know I'm in this universe. I can get
Yeah.
closer. I
Mm,
can get closer. So I became obsessed with getting close. And
mm.
then when I see a 40-yard deer, like sometimes you just have to wave goodbye because there's no trees to move to, there's no cover. It's just one of those sad situations that motivates you for the next stalk.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also changed my mindset on what a trophy is. Um, because I think everybody's a trophy hunter. And here's how you prove it. You take two deer. One's a spike buck and one's a 140 whitetail. Which one are you shooting?
100%. Yep.
Exactly.
The buck, the big buck.
Everybody would shoot the bigger buck. So at the end of the
Yep.
day, nobody's going to say, I'll just shoot the spike for meat. They want the meat and the rack. So we're
Mm-hmm.
all trophy hunters to some degree. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's understanding that for me personally, my definition, good hunt, clean kill, mature animal 3 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't need to kill a 190 to feel like I outsmarted a really cagey animal. You
Mm-hmm.
kill a 3 year old or older whitetail, and maybe it's 4 years old or older for some people, but for me, with the recurve,
Mm-hmm.
3 year old deer plus, that's a challenge for me, and that's a trophy. So that's kind of recalibrated some of my goals too. Like I just want to
That's
get close to the animal, be on the mountain or be in the woods and figure it out.
Well, and that's a good point because, you know, I have a lot of people. We've been taking a lot of new people out to Hawaii with us, and we've had every year now. We've had a couple of guys in camp that have never never hunted. Kip came this year, never hunted
Yeah.
before, ever, and you know so you're out there, and it's like you're chasing. You know, you've been there. They're everywhere. The animals are running around, but it's hard to get close. They're cagey. You know, really bad out there.
Yeah.
And people will always say to me, man, I wish I had a gun. I wish, you know, and I thought, I don't. You know, I go
Yeah.
out there now and I'm like, it doesn't even cross my mind. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I could pick up a gun, but that's cheating. You know, it's like I
Yeah.
could just, and so I can actually see how your mindset could go from, you know, in the beginning, I remember going out there in the very beginning with you. The first year I came, I hadn't archery hunted a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm still shooting the same old bow. You know, it's like what 14, 17 years old, and but when I was out there the first year, remember I was gonna actually that's I just remember, but I remember I went to Des and them and says I want a gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I says, give me a damn gun. I'm sick of this. These things suck. I can't kill them. And then me and you actually shot that deer together. I mean, our
Yeah.
arrows were
Yeah.
an inch apart. Forgot about that. But
Yeah.
that was wild where we drew back on this group coming in, and there was what 8 or 10 of them,
Yeah.
and we drew back, and the big buck in the back we fired, and our arrows were almost touching.
Yeah. It was crazy.
And that was wild, man. That was a wild one. But I actually was wanting to go to a gun, and now I go out there and I wouldn't even think of it. It doesn't even.
Yeah.
It's like no, that's cheating. And
Yeah.
so I can see how once you get a recurve in your hand, you probably look at us compound guys and are like, kind of cheating, bro.
Well, I kind of went through that spell a little bit, and I'll find myself in that realm if I'm talking shit with somebody, like joking around.
Yeah.
But I got to work in a lot of conservation with Blood Origins and sea, and man, if it weren't for rifle hunting, there aren't enough bow hunters to support hunting as it is.
Yeah,
We
good
need
point.
rifle hunters.
Yeah,
We
good
need
point.
everybody that is hunting with a crossbow, with a rifle, with a recurve, with a bow, compound bow. So when I step back and look at it from like their passion, their pursuit, whether I understand it, I don't, whether it's malicious or they're just bloodthirsty or they're actually out there, like I know some guys that have rifle hunted whitetails that could out hunt me all day long with a recurve, like, and not in the kill factor, but like woodsmanship. They can track deer. They know where the deer sleep. They know where the deer get up. Like, and it's just, they've never hunted with anything else but a 270 or whatever, that's their thing. So when I started looking at it that way of like, we're all trying to do the same thing.
We're all on the same team here.
That guy is after a particular deer, and he knows that his chances go up at 400 yards with a rifle, and that's what he's chasing, that one deer. That's awesome to me. If it's a little kid taking a rifle out and they're shooting their first animal or their 50th animal, that's awesome to me. But there is, for me personally, a challenge point for each one. So if I'm hunting with a rifle, I just want the hunt to be a challenge. Like, just make it hard so that when the shot is easy, the hunt was still hard. If it's a compound, dude, I want to shoot something in a very challenging way so that this was hard. If it's my recurve, I just want it to be a difficult, challenging hunt so that at the end of the day, I can be like, I did the best I possibly could. Like that's all I want from it.
Yeah, that's interesting. When we were out there last year, Eric didn't make it this year. He had some other obligations, but he says he's in for next year. So, but last year he came out, and I had just met him then again on that trip. I didn't know who he was or anything about him. And man, he shows up and he's like, got all this gear on, and he's heading to the top of the mountains. And I'm like, bro, they come down here, the pipes, I'm like, they run past the pipes, bro. You can like hop out of the car. And he's like, I want it to be hard. I want it to be hard. I want to feel like I earned this animal. And I teased him at first, like I do everybody, I gave him a little hard time. And this last year I went into he couldn't make it out. He found a couple of good spots up in there on some water way up in there. And I went and hunted those. And I was like, and I was with I actually was with Kip, and I said, man, I used to tease Eric about coming clear up in here, because we can go hunt on the road, and I'm like, wow, I'm getting it. I'm starting to grow. I'm starting to mature. That this isn't, the hard is what makes it special.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
yeah, it's pretty wild, man. It's been a cool. Are you hopefully you can maybe make it out next year, man. We got a pretty good group going.
I was just going to say, yeah, you'll have to give me the details on that, because like the last 2 years, so like most people, COVID kind of threw my world into a loop, but the last 2 years have kind of been like preset for me, just from opportunities that I've had. So I've not had a lot of flexibility on some things. I've had some, but like some of the bigger trips were like, you have to be here, you need to be there, you got to go here. So that's fine. But next year, I'm starting to plan to have my own flexibility to do some of that stuff. So I would love to go back to Hawaii. I've already been thinking about it.
It's awesome, man. I would love, like my uncle, like I said, he's been out twice with a recurve and hasn't killed. I actually bet him $500. I says, I'll give you
Yeah.
$500 if you can kill an axis deer with your recurve. And so I'll open the same bet to you,
All
man. I
right.
want to
All
see
right.
that. Yeah. Yeah, it'll help cover
All
your
right.
trip a little bit, but I want to be there, man. I want to see that, I just want to see that. Um, they're such hard animals. And for you to do that, it's like you said, it's just kind of a badge of honor, to take one of
Well,
those
I'll tell you
animals
right
that way.
now, I mean, even sitting here and hearing that offer is like awesome because in my mind, as of right now, it's impossible. Like
Mm.
I will give it everything I've got, but
Hmm.
it seems impossible based on how
It,
hard it was with our compounds. Like it
yeah,
was hard.
it was hard.
Um, but I thought the same thing before November of last year on whitetail, and I spot and stalked a whitetail,
Mm.
a Pope and Young buck, and I shot him at 16 yards.
That's
So
rad.
that impossibility is now
Make,
possible.
yeah.
And it's like that statement is not bragging. It just gives me the confidence to think, okay, what I view currently as impossible can be
Hmm.
done. Like
Hmm.
my impossible is not the universe's impossible. It's
For
only been
sure.
impossible to this point for me, but it's
For
been
sure.
done. So I can get there. If somebody else can do it, I can do it too. I just have to make it happen.
100%. And I think that would be, we started taking camera crews and stuff around, but I think to get some footage of that would be, I've actually asked some of those guys out there, Koo, he's a archery hunter and stuff. And,
Yeah.
nobody does recurve, they just don't,
Yeah.
they don't bring them out. And so I think I don't know of anybody who's killed one with a recurve. So yeah, man, I'll send you the dates here when we, here in the next few weeks, when we get it planned out, see if you can make it. We'd love to have you back. You're
Yeah.
always one of those guys, we were talking about that, and I actually might do an episode on this down the road, but there's certain people that come into camp and they add to it,
Yeah.
and they help cook and they help break your animal down and they add joy, and you always have done that, anywhere you've come, we always talk about you with, that kind of respect, and we miss you, we
Yeah.
really do. So
I miss those groups too, man. Those were some really good times in my life. And I'll be honest, like to just be in a group of guys that are good hearted, good minded. There's a little bit of trash talk, but it wasn't like there's no bad blood, there's no
yeah,
drama. Everybody
yeah,
was just kind of there doing their part, helping where they
mm-hmm,
could. If you didn't know
yeah,
how to clean an animal, you were cleaning the tools that we clean the animal with. If
yep,
you you
yep,
know,
yep,
it
yep,
that to me, I mean, we shared those animals as far as like we ate them and we shot them and we hunted them, and but like the camp stuff is what you remember more,
100%,
So
100%.
yeah, dude, I'm all in. I would love to experience that and hunt with you again, man.
Well, and you remember when I wrecked my leg, you were a big part of that story, I tell everybody
Yeah,
that story, where you
yeah,
you come out of the dust, and I'm like, Brandon, and you're like, Rick, and I'm laying there on the ground, and I'm like, I'm hurt bad, bro, like
yeah,
something's wrong. And you walked over and you're like, what's happened? And I told you, and you're like, instantly, you're like, it's your, what was it, my hamstring, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like it's a
yeah.
stage 3 hamstring tear or something. And I'm
There,
like, will I
yep.
walk again? Will I walk again, bro?
You're gonna
And
make
you
it.
you picked me up and helped me to the truck, and it's one of my funniest stories, man. It was a good time, but yeah, man, let's make it happen. Let's make more memories together. I sincerely appreciate you taking your time. I know you're a busy guy.
Oh, no
Um,
worries, man. I love it.
I really appreciate it. And if we can get down the road on another experience, I would love to spend time with you. So,
Yeah, me
how do
too.
people reach you? How do
You can
people
reach
reach you?
out to me. Brandon Lilly3 at yahoo.com is my email. Brandon Lilly3 is my IG. And then peace, love, and meat on Instagram is kind of a free workout, free journal entries, free
It was a
what
podcast, isn't it? A
yeah,
podcast
yeah.
as well.
Yep.
I
We
love
got a
that.
podcast too. Yep. So
Yeah,
me
yeah,
and my buddy Ross do that. And then yeah, just reach out to me any way possible. I'm easy to find and I'm glad to hear from you. So
yeah, man. I like I said, telling all the listeners, you're a good soul, and that's the kind of people that I want to. Like you said, as you get older,
yeah.
you got to start being specific with your time and choosing the people you're around. So I love you, man. I appreciate everything. If you ever need anything, you got my number. I'll be there. I promise
Same
you.
same to you, man. Appreciate
All
it,
right,
dude.
brother. Thanks for your time,
We'll
man. Have a
talk
good one, Brandon.
talk soon.
And there you have it. There was my conversation with Brandon Lilly. As you guys all heard, just an open book, a person who, has gone through a lot of struggle in his life, like a lot of us had, but his has gone probably a little bit deeper than maybe some others. And what I love about him is his willingness to share and to be open. A lot of people want to keep things to themselves. They're embarrassed, or, and he comes out with a lot of good advice for people that are going through some hard times. You can come out the other side. It's not, maybe it won't take a week or two. It might take 4 years like it did for Brandon, but you can come out the other side and you can build a beautiful life. And that's one of the ways, you can see here on if you're watching on YouTube, I've got my One Life ticket on the wall behind me. And that's what I've learned through the years is you get one life. So if you're living somebody else's version of your life, or you're stuck in a position that you just aren't happy, do what Brandon did and just start tweaking things. Just, if it took 1,000 ways to get there, it's going to take 1,001 to get out. But start that journey. Listen to podcasts, read books, reach out to people, look for mentors. Call your parents. Like he said, called his dad, and his dad came out, and it changed his dad, which changed Brandon, and that's a beautiful story. And I'm very grateful for him to come here and spend the time to hopefully impact some lives and look at life a little bit differently and get some insight. So thank you, Brandon. I'm going to send you a message. I hope to have you in Hawaii next year. And thank you so much for your time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. I know I did. I got a lot of notes here on my paper from that one. So thanks for listening. Tune in every Friday and listen, follow, all those good things. So appreciate you. M42 Adventures podcast, and we are out. Bye.